Hi. Hi, welcome to the virtual events group. Today is an AI fest, but I decided just to use my real life veg crown, virtual events group, veg, as we are, stands for better meetings wherever we meet. And that could be the metaverse, it could be the Marriott, and it could be Mars, but we try and help people become tech forward and digital first in everything they do when it comes to meetings. Our database behind all this is a big website with all sorts of tools to help you, platform services, production facilities to help you make better meetings, live, hybrid, virtual, we don't care. Our weekly newsletter keeps you up to date on event tech news. And our meetings, well, if you haven't been to one, you're about to experience one. It would not be an understatement to spend a moment talking about today before we get started in today. I'm going to take this off, but feel free to dress for this party. We're living in a pretty historic moment, and it pays to take a moment to recognize that. And I don't think there's been anything like it. Well, I'm going to say since the early days of the internet, but it may turn out to be since the early days of fire and the wheel, because it's always hard to see history when you're done with it. And it's happening really fast. And it's going to have consequences for all of us in our jobs, in our countries, in the way that we live and work. So for clarity's sake, I thought I'd just spend a minute sort of defining. You've all sort of been eased into this. Everybody had a digital assistant. I will not say her name because I don't want to get her started in all of your offices. Everybody's had something to do with AI problem solving, likely if you're driving your car. Everybody has talked to chatbots to the point of wanting to pull their hair out, and that's when you're talking to a travel agent or heaven forbid, tech support. And but generative AI is what we're going to talk about today. And just to be clear on how different it is, and I am not Jeffrey Hinton, and give you the greatest definition, but think about it as it is generating brand new outputs based on huge language sets that it's been trained on. And so the most important thing that you need to remember is it's been trained on the collective knowledge of whatever they're collecting, and that is going to be a big issue. And its answers are based on predicting based on that set of knowledge. And that's when I am going to switch, I can't even switch buttons, never mind. There'll be an AI for that next week. So I'm going to introduce you to our speakers briefly. And here's what we're going to do today. You're going to hear from each one of the speakers because I really do think, as I say, we are interrupting our usual programming to have a revolution. And I want you to hear from our speakers and then talk to them. Use the chat window, raise your hands. We're going to do a quiz in a moment. But I want to just give you a little bit of background. So Evo Heyning is a prolific creator of AI-generated content. She wrote the book Promptcraft, which is advertised on our website, and you can find it on Amazon, so that we could all gain some mastery over these tools. She'll show you a new project called Chapter that uses AI to help create variations on storytelling. It was just featured at Google I/O just the other week. Let me move on. Ben Parr wears so many hats that we don't even know how he's going to show up at any given moment, but he will pop up. These days, he's writing a column for The Information on AI, an opinion column. He's also the co-founder of an e-commerce-based AI. He's a podcaster. He's a noted speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He's a former editor at Mashable. You never know what you're going to get. And then Renee Teeley. Renee is, her business is to help passionate creators turn into really great business people. I met Renee through our co-conspirator, Jim Louderback. Renee and Jim produced the Creator Feed, a podcast about the creator economy. But what I didn't know about Renee until I met her in person was how many tools that are generative AI tools she uses to get her work done. So she is going to share her tips with you too. But here's the drill. We wanted to take a temperature in the room, and we're going to put up some slides, and we are going to ask you for the first 4 questions, just put up your hand, which is down on the reaction. Just raise your hand if the answer is yes. And for the last question, use the chat box on Zoom to talk to us. Let's do a little test here. The AI poll. Okay, do you use AI as part of your workflow? Raise hands. We see the hands coming. We see all sorts of things coming. I think this group is, I'm going to say probably in a growing minority, but I mean minority of using AI. And this was my turning point. And it was the same turning point I had in the internet, because we used to use encyclopedias. I don't know if you remember them. And then one day I just kept my browser bar open, and we're at that same moment. So the question is, do you keep a Chat GPT or Bing or Bard open on your screen all the time? And it's looking, pulling around here. No, I'm getting a no. And we definitely want to discuss why you don't, if the answer is no. But I think we'll hear opinions there too. Next up, have you worked with AI for graphic creation? So we talked a bit about text and searching, and we're getting a couple of definitive no's. And that we will address. I'm just looking at your gallery. You all look so nice. And finally, and this is where you come in with your write-ins. Nope. Have you worked with AI for video creation? Sorry, that's a yes, no also. And that's where Renee is going to go through her day, her work day. And I'm seeing some not yets, which is good, because I hope that you're here to learn. And finally, the write-in question. What is your favorite generative AI product? There are no wrong answers. And you can just use the chat window. And if you have no idea, you can say that also. I'm not even going to ask you if you pay or if it's free. And I'm not even going to answer I haven't heard of generative AI. Gizmo, you probably belong in goat yoga or something. So with that, that's a good temperature taking test. And I just want to do one more thing before I don't want to do one more thing. Okay. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to me full screen, and I'm going to ask our first speaker to sort of come in. And Evo is out in the middle of somewhere in
California,
outside of LA. Yeah. And I will not introduce her again, but Evo, take it away. We're anxious to hear you.
Sure, and thank you. And I believe Gigi's got my slides and we'll share those with you. But hi, everyone. It's great to meet you. My name is Evo Heyning. I have been a creator, producer, strategist, now a prompt engineer, as well as producer for the last few years. I began writing about AI in about 2005, writing speculative fiction. And Gigi, you can just go ahead and click through and it'll be just fine for you. So I lead a design hub right now called Realitycraft that is based in Oakland, California, just south of Pixar. And I spend my time working within teams on all types of media. As Robin mentioned, I wrote this book at the beginning of this year, specifically about the language of prompt engineering and how to get started with a wide variety of tools. Now, we're going to talk about chatbots like ChatGPT today. We're going to talk about image generation, and we're going to talk about video. But there's obviously a lot of generative tools out there that are useful for personal organizing, mind mapping, video, even audio. So I have been working on an album. This is actually a preview to that. It is called Oracles, like the ear, Auricles. And in the case of making this album, we can use 15 different large language models and chatbots for lyrics writing. And I've been testing all of these different tools to see which ones might be good use cases and partners in the writing process. So in this case, with oracles, I have found that tools like GPT-4, as some of you mentioned, are very good as potential writing allies for lyrics and for other types of work. With the band, we're doing a lot of our EPK writing and website writing and all of those sorts of things, but also sound production and voiceovers, what we call ciphers. Within my other contract work, I work for a company called Chapter. And last week we announced at Google I/O that we are building a project called Story. Story is storytelling tools for storytelling, specifically for kids. And I can't talk too much about this product yet, but you can go to Chapter, which is CHAPTR.xyz. And you can look up Story. We were able to include just a little bit at Google I/O last week, but you can get in for our private beta, which will be coming next month. So as a prompt engineer, I end up doing this mix of work where I am writing, producing, and thinking about human engagement, but I'm also thinking about iterative work with language and how do humans connect, not just through stories, but also through thinking about the ways in which we interact with stories and what are we looking for from stories. So I do a lot of work in my image generation that is about the ways we connect with nature, with other humans, with big ideas. For example, post-radiation cleanup, as this poster campaign was for. When I'm working on an image generation project, I'm often thinking about how are humans going to connect with this experience, whether that's historical work for world building. I do a lot of concept design for theatrical plays, video games, you name it. And so I'm frequently thinking about how to get to a better experience for all of you. And thank you for letting me know about those jitter issues. I'll do my best to support you on getting us clear here. My work in storytelling goes about 20 years. I come from a traditional media background, but my first script was about storytelling and our relationships with many different AI. And so part of my work with you here now is to figure out how can we understand our common languages, whether we're talking about a narrow AI, a collective intelligence, something broader like an AGI coming in the future, or all of these tools that we're using right now. So I apologize if I am freezing, but you can find me here at evo.ist. And I am going to be here for questions as we begin to talk about workflows and creative work, whether that's in film. I'm working currently on an AI film project, and we can talk a little bit about the process of production together. This is also where you can find the band. That's at Oracles AI. And I'll pass it off. Thank you so much.
You're not off the hook yet. First of all, your work is just absolutely inspirational, and having tried things. So I got Evo on the phone, and I said, I'm pretty good at language prompts. I'm pretty terrible at graphics prompts. And you gave me like a couple of good focus tips. And I'm wondering if you can kind of rehash them. If not, I can, because I use them now. Things like I can now do for magazine publishing, everybody wants 16:9. I can put that in my prompt. I can make the focal thing be the object, like walk through it like a typical prompt people might use. And you can tell me why I never get the same thing twice.
There we go. Sorry, unmuting. When I'm writing a prompt, I am thinking about a handful of key elements. That includes the art style, the description of the scene, the parameters, and what you're describing, like aspect ratio, are part of those parameters. And so often it helps to think ahead about what you're trying to create, if it's editorial content or a banner image for your website, and specify things like your aspect ratio ahead of time so that your generative output throughout the iterative process is going to be closer to what you need. And this is true for things like die cut stickers, or for things for film, or for your slide decks. Using your 16:9 aspect ratio can really help make sure that from very first generation that you can use what you're getting. And then from there, you want to iterate, you want to do variations where you build on your ideas and maybe take it in different directions until you get exactly what you're looking for.
Anybody else have any questions specifically for Evo? I see there's one in the chat about what is the typical length of your story?
I write a wide variety of stories, short to long. So I have tested everything from short children's stories to novels and novellas. I have written beat poetry and lyrics. And so there will be about a 55-page book of lyrics to go with the new album, where you can see which each LLM gave us in terms of lyrics, and then how we were able to use those lyrics.
So does it mean that the books are ever changing also? Did I get that right? I
am updating books very regularly, not the Oracle's lyrical book that I just mentioned, but with Promptcraft, I'm iterating it right now twice a year at least, probably 3 times a year, as the tools are advancing as fast as we can get a book out.
Wow, you have so many questions. Okay, let's see. Sandy, do you want to ask your question? Do you want me to ask it for you? Where are you? Children's media?
That's me. I'm here. Do you see me?
Yeah, you go ahead and ask your question.
My background is in interactive media for kids. I started at Sesame, worked in toys, worked in games, have done, that blend of education and play, and I'm obviously really interested in story. So I'd love to know any more that you can share. I understand if it's a confidential project, that makes it difficult.
It is. It is not yet out in public beta. You can sign up to get first notification of when that beta opens. I will say that these are storytelling solutions for kids and families that we're starting with. So your experience with Sesame is right on point. We're actually looking to speak with someone. I noticed Sesame's doing a new sandbox, and that looks really exciting. So we're excited to work with other media studios, IP holders, helping to figure out how to expand existing story worlds, but also deliver personalized and meaningful story experiences that are built for each individual kid down the line. So
right. Well, certainly, I agree that personalization is key. I mean, in the storytelling for sure. And so, your target age range is preschool, or is it like 3 to 7, 3 to 8?
Yeah, there's a preschool for the first private beta, and then there are additional tools coming for the older audiences.
So, Sandy, you should watch the Google I/O presentation. It's widely available on YouTube, and you can at least get a little glimpse of story. And
the link is in the chat here at Chapter XYZ. You can check out the story.
Thank you. I was going to ask you for that, so that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Evo. You can stick around. So Ben, I never know what you're going to pop up as. Does everybody see Ben Parr? And we'll see many versions of Ben Parr.
Wait. Oh, I'm in space. Give me a second. I got to get out of space. Somehow I'm in a pub. Let's see if I can get out of this one. I'm in a box. I got to think outside of the box. This class, let's go back to the classroom, because that's what we're doing today.
Got it. Does anybody, quick bonus prize. Anybody know what Ben is using to create that? You want to tell him?
I will. So it is a piece of software called I know that's actually the name. HMMHMM. That's actually what it's called. It's founded by a friend of Robin and mine, Phil Libin, the founder of Evernote. And this thing is amazing. It allows you not just to do like, here, cool background images, but I could just suddenly make my presentation appear. And not just that, I can just like take over the screen and everything. So you will see all sorts of cool things in a second, but you're getting the idea here. So I guess what I'm going to dive into for everyone is what is happening. What the hell is happening in AI? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about like the overall broad strokes. So of what's happening. And so I'll start a little bit with, I was at a little story. So I was at a panel yesterday, and on the panel here, I'm going to actually sit in a desk. There we go. So I was at a panel yesterday, and it kind of looked like this. I, of course, used Midjourney to create this specific image. You have to figure out which images are real and which are not. This is a whole game that I play with everyone. And I, like the conversation was supposed to be a little bit about the future of AI, and it really became very much about the risks of AI. And it was very fascinating because I had just been a little bit beforehand at another event, what happened in San Francisco, where over the course of just a week, someone from a company called Hugging Face, which is a big company in the AI space, announced that they were going to just do a meetup. And the meetup became 5,000 people in San Francisco. All the developers are all excited about all the cool things that you could build in AI. It felt like San Francisco, Bay Area tech 2008, 2009, when social media was first just becoming a thing, and there was all sorts of energy, all sorts of cool stuff. And so, it's kind of like a tale of like what's happening in the AI space. And so before going into that, hi, I'm Ben, everyone. This is me on stage with a couple of AI companies and a couple of big VCs. I am the president and co-founder of a company called Octane AI, to power AI for the world of e-commerce. I'm probably better known as the former co-editor and editor-at-large of Mashable, the tech news website. Longtime friends with Robin and many others here. And I have a couple of new things coming. I will send more. I'm announcing a new course where I am teaching people how to build an AI native company called on Maven. I'll drop a link in the chat in a second. And I also have a newsletter called the AI Analyst, where I talk about, guess what, AI. I also, as Robin has pointed out, have a column in The Information where I talk about AI. My column yesterday was about AI and jobs, which I will talk about for a little bit in a second. And so I'm going to go really quickly. I just wanted, before getting into it, just rewind the clock, because everyone just take a second to think. This all happened in less than 6 months. 6 months ago was when ChatGPT became a thing. Like, think about how quickly the world, everything, all your conversations changed in half a year. ChatGPT, December 2020. I remember when I first saw it, and I made a TikTok about it and how it could change education. That got 1.5 million views. And I had a lot of predictions as soon as people saw it. And I think they were right. It was the biggest and most important news story of 22. And it's becoming the most important news story of 2023, and its impact across society, because everyone's already started figuring out ways to use it to speed up writing essays, to write first drafts of emails, to do just about everything you could possibly imagine. But also in the last 6 months, a lot of people would talk about the risks. There was a famous letter that came out from a bunch of researchers and a bunch of people who had a bias against OpenAI, to be honest, to ask for a pause to AI experimentation after GPT-4 came out. Because you got to remember, when first ChatGPT came out, it was GPT-3, which was still pretty amazing. And then GPT-4 came out, and everyone was like, holy crap, it's that good. It can do all sorts of things. I will talk also about what things it can't do. But it was a big revolutionary moment. And then there's been a whole back and forth of movement of like, some people being like, AI will doom us all. Others being like, AI will bring us, to utopia. The conversation has shifted so quickly in the last 6 months of AI. I'm just like, is it going to be our doom or savior? And I'm just trying to paint a picture for you all of how quickly the conversation has been changing and evolving, and how quickly it is changing and evolving. But, and this is Sam Altman just recently at Congress, talking about AI and regulation. And so what I really want to do now is first say, like, if anyone tells you exactly what they think is going to happen, they don't really know because everything's changing so quickly. But I'm going to try my best to give you a little bit of view into what I think is going to be happening next over the next, let's say, year, and what's going to be happening longer term so that you can start preparing yourself. And I'm also here, of course, to answer questions about anything across AI. I've been doing this since 2016. So I've been in AI for what feels like a very long time, especially considering what's been happening in the space. So where are things going next? What's been happening? ChatGPT came out. You have these tools that help you do writing and do image generation really, really well. They've been advancing really quickly. The biggest next stage that I'm seeing is something called autonomous agents. My co-founder, Matt Schlicht, actually wrote this detailed guide, which I'll drop, on autonomous agents. What are they? It's essentially ChatGPT, but self-directed. So instead of having to type all the things you want it to do, you give it one command. It might be something like, build me a video game on a website, and I want it to have these 6 things. It will create a new prompt for itself. It'll keep on prompting itself until it's completed its tasks. That sounds crazy and sounds sci-fi, but it exists right now. There are 2 major tools out there that help you do this. One is called Baby GPT, and one is called Auto GPT, or Baby AGI is the first one, and the other one's called Auto GPT. And they're not tools yet that the general public could use, but you're going to start seeing them integrated into all sorts of tools. We're using some of that technology at Octane, in fact, for something we call the Insights Analyst. And so this is actually an example of how the Insights Analyst works. It basically looks through all of our customers' reviews. Like if they have 100,000 product reviews, it will literally, copy, it'll go and analyze them. It'll self-direct itself to figure out, more solutions and, find answers to your questions. And this is kind of the direction you're going to see AI go. You're going to see these kinds of interfaces where it shows you how the AI is thinking, because the AI is sort of starting to think. It's not yet conscious. We're not getting anywhere near that yet, but it's getting really, really powerful. And I think one message I want to make to everyone is, if you're not already really using AI every day, I think you need to be using ChatGPT every single day for something to just get in the habit of it. Because if you're not, you are going to be left behind. And so this is actually honestly what my company has been moving towards, focusing on deploying AI agents for the world of direct-to-consumer brands. But you're going to see this across, I think, a lot of other verticals. AI, instead of hiring a person, you're going to be hiring an AI agent for specific tasks. I really firmly believe that. And that's not a 5 years from now. That is in the next year sort of thing that's going to be happening. Now, there's consequences to that. Consequences like what's going to happen with regulation and jobs. So one thing I also expect to happen in the next year or two is the creation of a US agency just dedicated to AI regulation. I think, Sam Altman proposed this, but it was proposed by the billionaire Chamath, the founder of Social Capital, a couple weeks ago on The Information. And senators have definitely been embracing it. I've been having a back and forth with a member of Congress about this. It's definitely going to happen. And there's definitely going to be another thing, which is it's definitely going to impact jobs. So this was my column from earlier this week in The Information, where I make the argument that it's really clear now that AI will destroy jobs. So in the past, AI has, and I'm not trying to completely scare you, but I'm trying to scare you a little bit. In the past, other technologies have created just as many jobs as has been replaced. This is different. It's different because of the speed at which things are happening. It usually takes a longer period of time to create new jobs. And this is the first time we've had a technology, perhaps ever, that could replace knowledge work. It is really happening rapidly. And in fact, IBM earlier this month said that they would replace 30% of back-end jobs with AI over the next 5 years. And honestly, I don't think it will even take 5 years. People aren't going to fire, companies are not going to fire people and replace it with AI, but they're not going to rehire people in the same way. And we're going to see that ripple across the economy over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. So my message here is that the people who will figure out AI first will be the ones that have the jobs. And you're here now is a good first step, or second step is to figure out how to integrate AI into the workflows that you do, into the things that you do, and be on top of it so that you're not surprised when a company you work with or work for starts leveraging a lot more AI. And so AI wars, they have definitely begun, especially between Google and OpenAI. But you're going to see a lot of companies coming out with a lot of stuff. It is really, really hard to keep on top of it all. I'm literally putting a section of my Maven course just about how to keep track of what's happening in AI without your brain exploding, because that has honestly been one of my hardest challenges over the last 6 months. And then there's other super cool stuff coming out too. And like, you're going to see big updates to ChatGPT. Like, don't expect a GPT-5 for a long time, but expect major upgrades with, like, there was a new feature called Code Interpreter. You could literally upload a spreadsheet and it'll turn it into graphs. It's super cool. It's not perfect, but it's super cool. Google's Bard is also really, really getting much better than it was before. So you want to like try these different things, but there's going to be other areas beyond text that will be big. And this is my AI generated assistant here making music, but you're going to see a lot in AI music, AI art, AI video, and AI sound. And you're already seeing both like super amazing things and scary things, but these things are all going to be happening. And so I always say, like, be prepared and keep on top of it so that you can be ahead of the curve on those things. So that's the near term. Very quickly, I want to look into the crystal ball and talk a little bit about the longer term. One, AI assistants. I honestly believe in about 5 years, everyone can and should have an AI assistant that's like on top of the things. I know you can't really hear this one, but I will send this video. And essentially, this person at TED this year debuted an AI assistant that like lives right here. You can see right on his shirt pocket, and it can scan things and it can give opinions to a person about, like, should you be eating this? What is your dietary restrictions? You're going to get to a point in the next, I think, few years where an AI assistant is going to be with you all the time and be assisting you in daily life. I think that will be one of the big frontiers that autonomous agents will really be able to help us with. And things that we used to take time thinking about or doing will go by the wayside. As long as you're willing to embrace like this new world. And it is a crazy new world that is coming really rapidly for sure. So that's one thing I'm expecting to see really quickly. Another one is just more automation of the rote tasks that we've been doing for years. I'm seeing it with call centers happening already. I'm seeing it with a lot of other things where AI has become good enough for what I call structured tasks. So if you want to know what kinds of tasks will and will not be automated by AI, structured tasks are the ones that will be automated by AI. What do I mean by that? Those are kinds of tasks and areas that have really predefined rules. Legal is one where there's really defined rules of what is and isn't legal. And so basic contracts for sure. When you talk about advanced law cases, that is not structured. That will be less automated. Accounting, very, very structured, very standardized rules, easy for AI to help automate. What can AI not automate as well? Creative writing. So like like writers in the writer's room who are striking right now, for example, that is harder for AI to write an incredible script. It can write a basic script for a reality TV show, but it cannot write an advanced script like Severance yet. Maybe it can eventually, but it's not as good at that unstructured task. Opinion writing also falls into that kind of area as well. So when you're trying to think of like, could AI eventually do this, or is it already doing this? Think like, does this thing have structure and rules that AI could go and follow? Programming is another one where AI is probably going to be automating that really heavily, even more sooner than later. I am definitely seeing developers really worried about their long-term careers because AI codes really, really well. You could build an entire game on your own with just ChatGPT and an app called Replit. And I could teach you today if I want to, how to do that. And then yes, like if jobs are going to become an issue, we're going to be having longer conversations about society. Universal basic income will be a topic that will come up a lot over the next 5 years. You will see it in the news a lot to the point of being sick. Point is, there's going to be a transition. Some of it will be rough, but I do firmly believe it will end up in a better world. I use the exact image that Midjourney made for me because it doesn't do words correctly. Just to remind you all that AI is not perfect. AI does not do everything. It does things incredibly well. Also very interesting to see what AI thought a perfect world would look like. It looks like going back to the 1750s in the mountain remote somewhere in Europe is apparently what AI thinks the perfect world would look like. But, lastly, a couple key tools I think you should look at if you're not already using. Tone for presentations. This is actually what I'm using this presentation for. It helped generate this presentation partially automatically. You can type in a prompt, it writes text automatically. ChatGPT Pro, of course, not just the regular ChatGPT, but ChatGPT Pro. It comes with the web browser plugin soon where it could literally connect to the internet like Bard. I can see the back and forth in the chat. Midjourney is my favorite of all the AI image generation tools. Stability AI, Stable Diffusion is also really good. But Midjourney is for sure the best. And then there's existing tools like Grammarly or Notion. They have amazing AI tools. Notion AI, you could literally put, I saw a friend put a bunch of like names into a thing, and then it automatically wrote out who those people were and like how to talk to them and how to pitch them. Ridiculous stuff you could do as you dive deeper into your AI journey. And I know I went through a lot of stuff and I probably went over time, but we want to dive deeper. I have a course that I'm going to be teaching starting in June about how to build an AI native company. I'm going to be covering all this stuff in depth. I have my newsletter. I'm easy to find at Ben Parr on every social network. Ben at Ben Parr if you want to just directly email me. And then just, there's my link in bio. It has links to everything else, my book, all sorts of other stuff. With that, I will say thank you. Happy to answer questions. Sorry if I went over.
Right. And now through the magic of ChatGPT and Descript and AugX and a whole bunch of other things, we're going to snip this video up and we'll put every title of every AI program that was mentioned and we'll have it done within 10 minutes of the meeting.
Good. AugX is awesome. I'm an advisor. They are awesome. You should try them out. They turn text into video. If you haven't tried it, it's super cool.
Yeah. Yep. And AugX actually did our instructional video on our website with a little human help. But what I'm finding now, Ben, is like AI wars, chatbot wars is happening on my machine. So I have a Chrome extension called Merlin. Like Merlin's just in my face, like every minute, summarizing the website before I get to it, so I don't have to get to it. Then I have Grammarly not just correcting my grammar anymore, but asking me shorter, longer, more assertive voice. But I did do the Writers Guild test yesterday. It was in the newsletter where I asked it to tell jokes in the forum, and I didn't print all of it. Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, Bill Maher. It was surprisingly good. Wasn't great, but it knew the difference between those styles enough for me to recognize it because I was really sick of reruns. And it's a problem. The Writers Guild are like a litmus test for all of us.
The writer's strike is going to be a big story. I'm actually doing a panel with a couple of the major showrunners here. I live in LA. I'm going to be doing one soon. I think the writer's strike is a very interesting one because it comes probably at a very good time for them where now they know how powerful AI can be, but the studios haven't had time to figure out how to use it to replace more writers. But I had a very frank conversation 2 nights ago with one of the top showrunners in the country. And his words to me were that, yeah, they got to fight. They got to like get as much as possible in this negotiation. But he still expects that there will be half the amount of writers in the writer's room within the next 5 to 10 years, because AI will be writing first drafts of so many things. And
I think that goes for lawyers. I think that goes for judges. I think it really half as many. And so Andrew Yang was way ahead of his time. But now we're going to move over and he'll probably be back. So Renee Teeley is up next. And Ben, thank you and Evo, and please stick around. We feel pretty lucky. Renee, take us through your life and how AI has changed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'm going to share my screen. Put this on. There you go. So as Ben mentioned, AI, it's not new. So AI has been around for a long time, but there have been just outstanding developments in AI technology for creators over the last 6 to 9 months, I would say. And also, as Ben mentioned, there are people who fear that AI is going to replace them. And certainly I think that AI is going to replace certain skills or make it easier. I don't think that AI is going to replace creators, I do believe that used in the right way, AI can help you to be more efficient and more creative as a creator. I'm going to walk through some of the ways that I use AI as part of my podcast workflow. And then I'm also going to share some tools that I use across different types of content. So I'm creating audio content, I'm creating video content and images and lots of different things. So I'll share a couple of different tools there. Let me go to the next slide. All right. So as Robin mentioned, I host a podcast along with Jim Louderback called The Creator Feed. And Jim and I, for those of you who don't know Jim, he was the GM of VidCon. He's been in the industry for a long time. We get together every week and we talk about changes and updates and things happening in the creator economy. And as you can imagine, we talk about Gen AI a lot. There's always new developments in Gen AI. But I am using Gen AI as part of the entire workflow for the podcast. So the podcast is an audio only podcast. And I'm using it in terms of everything from researching and editing and even promoting the podcast. So here's just a couple of ways that I'm using AI as part of the workflow. First, I'm using ChatGPT 4. So I'm not using 3. I do have the paid version. I'm using ChatGPT 4 to summarize topics. And one of my favorite features of ChatGPT 4 is that you can actually give it a URL to something. And so I use it to summarize topics. And instead of copying and pasting information from a blog post, I will just give it a URL and ask it to summarize the topic. And that's going to help me talk about that topic on the podcast. Then I'm taking the podcast that we publish and I'm turning it into a transcript. And then I take the transcript and I ask ChatGPT to turn it into podcast show notes. So then I have show notes when I'm publishing the podcast. I also take that transcript and ask ChatGPT to turn it into a summary that I can use for newsletter content on LinkedIn. And then I'm taking the summary for the newsletter content and asking it to summarize one of those topics even more so that I can publish a LinkedIn post to promote the newsletter. And then I'm using Midjourney to create the newsletter images. There's lots of other imaging tools out there. I've just found I've gotten the best results with Midjourney. So that's the tool that I use. And then I'm also using Descript to clean up any audio issues. Both Jim and I have a professional setup at our house to do the podcast, but oftentimes we're traveling. So we'll record the podcast with just, kind of whatever microphones we have when we're out and about. And so sometimes it's not always the best audio quality, but we can use Descript to kind of clean up the audio. And we'll talk about Descript a little bit more in just a moment. Let me go to the next slide. So because I'm using ChatGPT as such a big part of my process, I wanted to share some tips on things that have worked really well for me. And I know Evo talked a little bit about prompting language and things like that. This is just what happens to work for me. And I kind of use this a little bit like Mad Libs for ChatGPT. Hopefully some of you get the reference and I'm not just dating myself a little bit there, but essentially this is kind of the structure that I've used for lots of different types of prompts and it served me pretty well. And so I like to give ChatGPT a persona. So I actually give some information to ChatGPT on what identity or role I want it to take. Typically, I want the response to sound like it's coming from me. So I'll feed it some information around me and kind of give it that role. And so in this case, I said, you are a creator economy expert. And then I'll give it some information around the persona activity. So anything that's relevant to the request. And so here I'm saying you're a creator economy expert that hosts a podcast. And then I'll include the target audience. So that really helps to tailor the response to whatever that audience is. So creator economy expert that hosts a podcast for creators, and then give specific information around what you want ChatGPT to do. So here I'm saying summarize an article and then give information around what do you want those results to look like? So for me, when I'm summarizing content for the podcast, I want it to be like a very quick paragraph with key takeaways. You could ask it for a bulleted list or a top 10 list for headlines, whatever it is, but give it information on exactly what you want that output to look like, and then give it a tone of voice. And so here I'm saying conversational and informative, but you could have it, the tone of voice is casual and humorous, whatever you want it to be, that's really going to help you get a better response. And then, of course, include any relevant content to help give it accurate results. And so I just use a URL to articles, which has just worked out phenomenally well. It makes it super easy to get summaries of news and different things that are happening. Now, what I don't outsource to ChatGPT is any point of view. So this is all kind of the workflow that I use to summarize information and to help me make things more efficient as I'm working through the podcast. But opinions and my point of view on the podcast, those are for me. So I'm really outsourcing the task of kind of summarizing information and then adding my own spin on it. Same thing with Jim. So Jim kind of goes through a similar process as he's researching. And together we talk about our point of view and why we think these changes are good for creators or not good, and what this means. So not outsourcing that particular piece of it. So this is really how I use ChatGPT as part of the process, but there's a few other tools that I use for the podcast, but also video content and other things that I'm doing. One of my favorite tools, Descript. So I saw in the chat that people have been mentioning Descript. I use it all the time, love it. For those of you who don't know, Descript is an editing tool that you can use for audio and video. Once you upload your file, it'll turn your audio or video file into a transcript, and then you can edit the transcript, which is really cool. Two of the features that I use most frequently with Descript is Studio Sound and Overdub. So Studio Sound, literally at the click of a button, you can clean up audio issues like background noise and echoes. I use it even when I'm recording in the studio. So it kind of helps enhance the audio, but it is phenomenal when you have any audio issues. Like when Jim and I are recording we recorded an episode at NAB and the audio was terrible, but we were able to use Descript to really clean that up and still have something that was worthy of publishing as part of the podcast. So really great tool. Overdub is also a great feature. So Overdub is essentially an AI trained version of your own voice. So it's kind of like a deep fake of your own voice. You train it to sound like you, and then it can turn text into speech that sounds like you. So I don't use this for like a full podcast. I'm not just typing things out and using Overdub to do the podcast, but I do use it if we're quoting research and we accidentally say the wrong thing. So if we're, quoting someone or saying numbers and it wasn't the right number, you can just go in, I can quickly kind of fix that, type it to the correct information, use the overdub, and then it sounds just like me. I've used it in the podcast and no one has noticed. So it works really well. What I will say about this is it kind of is like junk in, junk out when you're training it. You want to make sure that you're giving it enough of an inflection in your voice that it really kind of does sound like you for that overdub version. But for me, it's worked pretty well. vidIQ is another tool. It's actually really great for content creation. So they just launched an AI content generator for YouTube recently, still in beta, still some work to be done here. But essentially, you're able to put in a video topic. The more specific you can get, the better. And you just put in your video topic, you click that go button, and then what you're going to see is it'll generate, based on that video idea, it's going to generate a title, a description, keywords that you can use in YouTube, a thumbnail background. So this is not your actual thumbnail, but maybe you can use it as a background and use Photoshop or Canva or something else to layer things on top of it. So some type of thumbnail background. It'll create a video script and even a voiceover. Now, with any type of AI tool, I do recommend that you check for accuracy and do some fact checking. So in this case, I asked vidIQ to come up with a video about the history of Peeps. And I sometimes do weird food videos. And so this fit perfectly into some of the content that I do. And I did fact check it, and the information was correct, which is good. That's not always the case for AI tools. So I do recommend that you do some fact checking. But the script actually is pretty good, and something that I could potentially use. But it gives you a really good kind of starting package for your YouTube content. So pretty interesting tool to check out. Another tool that's really helpful for creators is some AI tools from Kajabi. So Kajabi is a platform that helps creators sell courses and coaching and some other things that you can do with it. But they just released a suite of AI tools to help specifically with course content. And so you can use AI to help create the course outline, also actual lesson content, landing page copies so that you can sell the courses, email copies so you can email it out to your network, the script for a sales video. So it's kind of the trailer video for you to sell your course, and then social media content to help promote the course. Now, this is still new, but I've been playing around with it and I've seen some really impressive results from this. So if you're a creator who's selling courses or thinking about selling a course, or have been stuck because you haven't been able to create your course, this is a pretty good tool to check out. And I know that they're developing some additional features here. So lots of things to play with here, but I've seen some pretty impressive results with that. All right. And so those are just a few of the tools that I use. I've been exploring a lot of other AI tools. I think that right now, some of the tools that I've been able to see, especially around video creation, like creating the actual content, I feel like there's a lot of potential. Many of them are not quite where I would like them to be for me to actually use them as part of my published video. But I've been exploring a lot of things, and I think that we're going to see some really impressive results with video content specifically in the near future. So if you want to connect with me, I'm the only Renee Teeley. I'm really easy to find online. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you're interested in listening to the Creator Feed podcast. It's on all of the major podcast platforms. And then you can also subscribe to the newsletter on LinkedIn.
Holy wow. We feel pretty lucky. Evo, Ben, Renee, I vow that we're going to pull out all the products that you've mentioned and that have come in the chat, and we'll put them together. Also, if you visit the virtual events group, we started an AI section, and I think we're kind of up to date on everything you've talked about, thanks to the work of Alfred Parr. So definitely check it out. And if you have more suggestions, tell us. And if you have things you want to go deeper in, but let me, I think we have time for like one or two questions. And then I know everybody is going to go give up their day jobs and play with AI, right? Because that's what you're going to have to do anyhow. Question? Are we excited? Or these are huge issues and require, and it's funny, when Ben put that slide up about, going back to the 50s or the 70s as his last mid-journey image, I'm sitting going like, that is what some of our elected officials, paid political announcement, would want us to do. And those days, for better, we have to experiment. It's incumbent on us because we have to be the voice of reason in all of this. And to be the voice of reason in anything, you have to be somewhat knowledgeable and have experimented. And I think if we keep that in mind, we stand a pretty good chance. Any thoughts, questions, comments? I see they're going, and if not, I am going to, let me do this. I just want to tell you what's coming up, but of course, I'm right back at the beginning of things. If you missed it, you can watch everything online, and you can watch it snipped up by AI in about 24 hours also. Next month, we'll have our last meeting. We're going to take a little time off this summer, and I hope you do too. It's going to be about cultivating community, and we have 3 great speakers. But if you have not watched Alex Lindsay and Office Hours, you should. Alex is the amazing example of how he built a community during the pandemic. It was about Zoom and making better Zooms. And now he's got this production and broadcast knowledge that's extensive. Denise runs Carry, which is a network that helps other networks. It's got gamification built in. It's a great social community. And Jerry Lee launched something called Gradual, which is also doing super well at building and retaining communities. And we'd love to hear from you if you have other ideas about that. And finally, if anybody's going out to Augmented World Expo, we will be debating two things and in the traditional style of debates. One is, should college be virtual? And I managed to find, actually, he's a super high-tech person, John Katzman, but he thinks college should still be in person. And the other person from Victory XR will argue that he's done 100 universities in VR now. And then we'll do, I'm calling the next one at Augmented World is a debate with themselves, because everybody's so conflicted about their opinions, but we have some fabulous AI experts on that panel. I'll then go talk about the kids' world and at a lovely session where we try and pay homage to Piaget and everybody who, Montessori, and the people who hopefully stay alive. Will be at Toy Fair, again, bringing the tools that the toy industry, both as creators of toys and as creators in themselves. Renee, you may get reinvited yet again for this fall. And finally, we're working with Communications Week, because guess what? Communicators need AI tools as well. So anybody who wants to participate with us, Comms Week is an in-person event. And yes, it is it does cost to participate in that one, but we get a great virtual events group discount. And with that, I am going to go back to just me, Robin, and say, enjoy summer, enjoy real reality, do your daily dose of AI. Thanks, see you next month.